Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I've got a video all about intrusive thoughts. So I work with a lot of people who suffer with different mental health conditions where intrusive thoughts are a symptom of that. So people with high levels of anxiety, people who have OCD. I post a lot about this on my Instagram, so if you're more keen on short form content, definitely check out my Instagram because I do post a lot about all different types of things like starting therapy, but I also post about intrusive thoughts as well. But I wanted to do a YouTube video about it where I can go into a little bit more detail for you about what they are, why do some people suffer more than others, and steps obviously to cope and to recover from intrusive thoughts. I've just realised I haven't introduced myself at all. I'm Katie, I'm a qualified therapist and I've been in private practice now for, my gosh, like almost 3 years, I think. So yeah, I can't keep track of the time at all. For people who are already subscribed, I'm trying a different spot today. So I'm just seeing if this is a bit better than where I usually sit. I usually sit at the desk. I'm sitting in the middle of the room today. You can see my therapy room in the background, which is quite cool. So I sit on the blue chair, clients sit on the yellow sofa. Thought this would make quite a good background for this video, as this is where a lot of my work with intrusive thoughts happens. Right before we get into the video, just a reminder, please subscribe to my channel if you're interested in mental health related content. Let's get into it. So obviously I want to start off with what are intrusive thoughts. So intrusive thoughts are unwanted, invasive thoughts, feelings and images that can leave people feeling really distressed, really panicked, and can become obsessive as well. So it's not just a thought that goes in and out, it's a thought that can take over somebody and somebody can become extremely preoccupied with that thought. Intrusive thoughts are really hard to eliminate as well. Often people really want to obviously get rid of them, but that can make them more sticky, as I call it, or can make them latch even more. The distress levels get higher, the obsession can get higher because they're becoming more and more stuck in a person's mind. So that's the definition of intrusive thoughts. So what's the difference then between normal thoughts and intrusive thoughts? Well, I want to start off by saying that intrusive thoughts are normal thoughts, they've just become intrusive. So what do I mean by that? As in, it's very normal to have certain thoughts pop in and out of your head that might even be a bit shocking or a bit mean or a bit scary or a bit gross, or just all, you know, just all those kinds of like negative descriptions. It is very, very normal and part of the human experience to have thoughts like that. Where it becomes intrusive is our reaction and how much we notice them. Again, people have strange thoughts all the time, but they don't think much of it. They just have the thought and then carry on with their day. Intrusive thoughts are like loud. They're very, oh my gosh, why did I just think that? Like, what is wrong with me? And we have then all the kind of feelings and panic and shock around said thoughts. So I just wanted to start off by saying that. But the main difference really is intrusive thoughts are usually disturbing. So again, it's not going to feel intrusive if it's light and fluffy, if you're just thinking about, you know, your favorite TV character or what you're going to have for dinner, or, you know, thinking nice things about a loved one. They're not going to feel intrusive because they're nice and can give you good feelings. Intrusive thoughts are sudden and usually invasive, and usually you're trying to get on with doing some work or just, you know, in the shower or walking somewhere, and then suddenly it's out of nowhere, it's random, and it's a disturbing theme. And I'm going to talk more about the different themes in a moment. So they're the difference between normal thoughts and intrusive thoughts. But as I said, it is normal to have certain intrusive thoughts. It is normal to think random things. It's even normal to think quite like disturbing things, and normalizing it is definitely part of the recovery. So that's why I'm making a point of really saying that. But there are, of course, some differences between our day-to-day thoughts and intrusive thoughts as well. So what are some examples of common intrusive thoughts? And again, I want to place emphasis on common here, as in if you're watching this video because you're like, what is wrong with me? I just had this horrendous thought the other day. I cannot stress enough how common some of these are. Thoughts like, I'm going to die, I'm going to get really sick, I'm going to get a disease that is going to be horrendous. Thoughts of violence. So the example that I always use with clients is like being at a train station and you're just at the platform, you're quite bored, you're on your phone maybe, and you're just kind of people watching, and you might just have the thought of just jumping on the train tracks. It doesn't mean that you're suicidal or depressed, but you might just randomly think of it, or you might think of, especially if someone's quite close to the edge, oh, I could just push them. I technically could just like shove them and they'd be on the tracks. When you're saying it out loud, it sounds really disturbing, right? But these are just like fleeting thoughts that loads of people have every single day. It doesn't mean that they're going to act on them. It just means that it's just a thought that enters their head. So something violent, something aggressive, something mean about somebody, just about their appearance, or just, something that you would never normally think or say. So it kind of takes you by surprise because it's quite cutting and it makes you question who you are as a person. Sometimes they can be quite negative, intrusive thoughts about yourself as well. Just really nasty insults like, I'm a freak, no one's ever going to love me, I'm so ugly. Just, really horrible, intrusive thoughts about yourself can happen. It can be about things that are around day-to-day appliances. So you might have experienced this where you've left the iron on, you've left the oven on, you've left all the lights on. Anything like that is really common. I've left my car keys in the car, even though they're actually in the house. Anything like that, again, they are valid examples of intrusive thoughts because you can't really shake them. They're like, I've definitely left the iron on, I've definitely left the iron on. So that's a really common example of an intrusive thought. Other examples of intrusive images can be flashbacks to something in the past, something where you feel like you really embarrassed yourself or did something really wrong. So you're kind of replaying the image of that again in your head. Or you can get disturbing images of, again, violence or things of a sexual nature. So quite like graphic images as well that can certainly, take someone off guard. And again, it can obviously be really disturbing. It can also just be intrusive thoughts around shame. So, oh, I'm going to do something really inappropriate at this party. I'm going to do something really embarrassing at work. And again, not being able to shake that thought and therefore not being able to shake that feeling. And again, this kind of links to the violent ones that I was talking about earlier, but fear of like doing something illegal, doing something massively wrong as well is a really common one. There's also a type of intrusive thought called magical thinking. So this is where you feel this sense of, if I do this, then something will happen, or if I don't do this, something will happen. So for example, if I don't switch the lights on and off again, then someone's going to die, or I'm going to get seriously hurt, or my partner's going to leave me, or just this, it might not even be specific, just this feeling of dread. You'll see a lot of this with people that count. So like, again, counting the light switching on and off, maybe like tapping a door before entering it, or perhaps like not stepping on the cracks. So it kind of links to like superstition as well. So you might see somebody who is counting their steps or deliberately not stepping on cracks. And it's because in their mind, if they do, then something really bad's going to happen. So that's another really common type of intrusive thought as well. And this really does link to OCD. Now I've got a whole video on OCD, which I will link up there. So I'm not going to spend ages talking about intrusive thoughts and OCD, although obviously that's going to be naturally part of this video. And if you are someone who suffers with OCD, or you think you are, it's still going to be really like relevant information. But if you want a more detailed video on OCD, then I would definitely encourage you to check that one out. So there are some examples of really common intrusive thoughts, and you might be sat there thinking, well, how come, if it's so common, why isn't everybody like walking around like in sheer terror and panic of their thoughts, their brains, and just living in fear that they're going to do something really violent or embarrassing or illegal or sexual or inappropriate, etc. And the reason is because everybody responds to these thoughts differently. The reason why so many of us are able to cope is that they do not latch. So again, if I take the train station analogy, there will be people that are stood there, they will have that thought of like, oh, I could just push that person. And they won't even remember having that thought. They then get on their train, then they go to work, and the day just carries on as normal. Somebody with high levels of anxiety or OCD or another mental health condition, or are just particularly vulnerable or have particular core fears, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment, will not forget that. They will not have that moment on the platform, get on the train and then go to work. They might even leave the station because they're so distressed about the thought that they've just had, or they do go to work but then they have to be sent home because they're like riddled with anxiety. Or if they're somehow able to get through the day, it stays with them. They then go to bed thinking about that thought that they had, and then it spreads to like, is there something actually wrong with me? Am I a violent person? Do I want to kill somebody? Am I evil? Do I want to harm someone else? Do I want to harm myself? And then you can see it escalates and escalates into like a proper intrusive thought problem. So that's the difference. That's why some people can cope. They can accept that it's kind of part of their brains, or they just don't notice it. They just really don't notice it. And other people not only notice it, but then that's it. It latches on and it becomes really, really debilitating. And I want to talk more about that next. So why do people suffer so much or end up suffering so much when it comes to intrusive thoughts? So the reason why it becomes really debilitating and can sort of take over people's day-to-day is because they're desperately trying to disprove the thought. So if I just stick to the same example, let's try and mix up the examples. Say somebody has a health-related intrusive thought. I had a pain, I think there's something wrong with me. Then that leads to Googling. I need to find out information about this pain. What does it mean? Then that leads to booking a doctor's appointment and getting tests. Then that leads to asking your loved ones to check. Can you just check if you feel that I'm hot? Have you noticed that I look kind of pale like recently? So you're constantly checking with somebody else, and it never ends, because even with the health example, there's only so much disproving you can do. So you spend 2 hours on Google, longer actually. I've seen some people spend hours and hours and all night on Google and on forums trying to find something. Then you can go to your doctor's appointment and they tell you that you're fine. Then you go to another doctor for a second opinion. Then there's a new symptom because you're so stressed at this point that it was just the pain in your arm, now it's headaches. So now you want to go back to your doctor and say, well, it was just that pain, now it's headaches. So you do more tests. Then there's some sort of vitamin deficiency that they've noticed, so you start taking that vitamin, but then it doesn't really solve all the problems. So, and you can see, then you could go on and on and on and on, because you're desperately trying to disprove there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with me. So that's one way that it can become really, really debilitating. Another way is just that craving for certainty. You want to be, it's really similar to trying to disprove something, but it's this, we can never be 100% certain about things. So this is where I talk a lot about this with people that suffer with relationship related intrusive thoughts. So thoughts like, what if my partner isn't the one? What if I'm meant to be with somebody else? What if I will find someone else more attractive, etc., etc. Then they're looking at their partner and they want 100% certainty. No, this is the person I want to marry. No, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And 100% certainty, when you've been together for a long time and, you know, relationships aren't perfect, you can have arguments, you can have stressful situations. Well, then how are you supposed to have 100% certainty? That person's looks will change over the years, or your level of love or attraction will be a bit up and down. So again, how are you supposed to have 100% certainty? But the person is so desperate for that they're just continuously striving to get that. And that leads to it being, again, extremely debilitating. Another reason why people suffer is because they're so scared of becoming their thoughts. So what do I mean by that? So again, this is more linked to the violent type of intrusive thoughts, or the more kind of sexual, inappropriate type of intrusive thoughts. Oh my gosh, what if that means I'm a predator? What if that means I'm a creep? What if that means I'm a violent person? What if that means I'm an evil person? And they're so scared of that being true that they just completely break in a way, like they completely go into themselves. I see a lot of people that won't leave the house, see a lot of people that cut off people because they're so afraid of, like, you know, I'm not a good person, so I shouldn't be in that person's life. And it's this suffering that happens, and of like, what if this is true? What if the thoughts I'm having is a reality? What if I really do want to do that thing that I just thought? What if I really do want to push the person onto the platform? What if I really do want to harm someone? What if I really want to harm myself? That fear of being into certain sexual things just because you had that image or that thought, and that's just unacceptable to you. So then it's like, well, now I can't date. Well, now I need to break up with my partner because there's clearly something wrong with me, or I'm clearly looking for something else. It's that fear of becoming the thoughts and not having any separation from them. And then that links to the final point, which is attaching too much meaning to the thoughts. So the thoughts will win and have so much power when we give them the upper hand and think, yep, they are 100% correct. It must mean this. So again, if I use the relationship related intrusive thoughts, a big one is finding someone else attractive and how much meaning someone gives that. So I work with a lot of people who will see somebody on the street and think, and I have thoughts around them being really attractive, really beautiful, perhaps having like a feeling as well, heart racing or like sweaty palms. So have like a physical reaction to seeing somebody who is very attractive. And then rather than just leaving it at that, oh, that person's really hot, I find them really attractive, they attach loads of meaning to that. And suddenly it means that they don't love their partner, that they don't find their partner attractive, that they're in the wrong relationship, that they're actually supposed to be with that person, that they're actually supposed to be with somebody that looks exactly like that person. Well, my partner doesn't really look like them, so I've clearly made a mistake, clearly done something wrong. Maybe I'm more attracted to that person than my partner. And then so there's all this meaning being attached to what was actually a fleeting moment. Just walking down the street, seeing someone and being like, they're really attractive, oh my goodness, like they're quite striking. Instead of leaving it like that, it's so much meaning behind it now. It means all these different things about your current relationship or who you are as a person. Oh, I'm gonna cheat, I'm gross, what's wrong with me, I'm creepy because I've like really noticed this person. So you can see all the different ways that it can latch for someone, and then they're just completely suffering with that. So I want to talk about some common themes now around intrusive thoughts. So I've mentioned a few already, and I want to talk about them a bit more and link them to some core fears that people have, which is why the intrusive thoughts are latching onto this theme, if that makes sense. So to start off with, then health. So really, any intrusive thoughts related to your body and health is usually linked to the core fear of death. So people that have real high anxiety around death and dying and illness, they are more susceptible to having intrusive thoughts around health. So that thing of you feel a symptom, like you have a headache, and rather than just being like, oh, I have a headache, that's annoying, you attach loads of meaning to it because it's like, what does this mean? And it's that fear of dying, that fear of disease, maybe that fear of something really being wrong is what then escalates it to, oh my goodness, I have a headache. What does that mean? I need to find out. I need to figure this headache out. And then just the intrusive thoughts of there is something wrong with you. You are going to die. This is the worst case scenario. And then it becomes really unbearable. So that's one theme. Harm, again, so this can be harm towards yourself or harm towards others. That's the fear of being a bad person. It's usually the fear of losing people as well. So it's quite funny in a way how it works. say you are really close to your parents, for example, or really close to your friends, or really close to your siblings. Let's stick to parents as an example. And you've got a certain attachment with them as well. Like maybe you're an only child, or maybe you just really are super, super close, and you're somebody that when you were young, you struggled to go to school and sort of leave mum and dad, and it was quite traumatic. You're kind of 5 years old, starting school, and you're really distressed. So if you're kind of, and obviously I'm kind of using a bit of a specific example just to bring it to life, but if you're somebody that had that kind of attachment with your parents and you really care about them, and that can create a fear of loss, of like, what would I do without my parents, and really feeling that as well. And then strangely, because that fear is so strong, your brain is attacking that, especially if you've got OCD. It's like, oh, that's a fear that I can kind of meddle with and get in. And so it's like you start having intrusive thoughts of like pushing your mum down the stairs, or hitting your dad, or just violent thoughts. And it's because you actually really care about them. It's because it's such a taboo, scary thing for you. You'll notice with all of these themes that they're quite taboo, stuff that is stigmatized, that we don't talk about a lot, which is like violence, for example, or harm to self. Relationship related intrusive thoughts is one that I've already touched about. So again, it's quite taboo, or it's quite like frowned upon, isn't it, to say things like I'm attracted to somebody else, or to admit that you don't always find your partner attractive, or to admit that you don't always feel really in love with your partner. These are really unspoken things. And we're also force-fed a lot of like relationship related content. There's so much on like TikTok about red flags. I think of like Disney movies and rom-coms of what a relationship should be. We've got loads of reality TV shows like Love is Blind and Love Island, etc. Again, kind of force feeding lots of information around relationships, and all of that combined can create a lot of confusion, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety of what it should be and what it shouldn't be. And that can definitely result in intrusive thoughts, or just normal thoughts becoming intrusive thoughts, like noticing somebody and finding them attractive, or just having a negative thought about your partner and then thinking, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have thought that, and then it growing and growing and growing and growing. So relationship is definitely another one as well. There's definitely sexuality related intrusive thoughts. It's called HOCD, and that's where you can have, again, intrusive thoughts related to being gay, or having intrusive thoughts related to a different sexuality to how you identify. So I don't know, a guy may be like stumbling on gay porn, for example, and not being completely repulsed by it, then that might kind of latch on and be like, actually, does that mean something? Again, attaching meaning. Does that mean something? The fact that I didn't automatically click out of that, or there was, something about it. Does that mean? Just attaching loads of meaning to like a fleeting moment, or just seeing another guy and again thinking, oh, he's actually quite good looking. And it's usually rooted in a fear of being gay, which could be caused by so many different reasons. Just that fear of being different, fear of not being accepted, fear if you've grown up in like a homophobic household, that you might have got some core beliefs about it, or just some rigid beliefs around sexuality as well. So like you're not allowed to have like a different thought about a different gender. When we're that restrictive about things like that, again, we're more likely to get intrusive thoughts about it, because we're being so rigid about things that it doesn't allow for any kind of moments of random thoughts. So that's a big one. Another big one is fear of being a paedophile as well. So it's usually called POCD. Again, massively taboo, massively disturbing, massively scary. As you can imagine, that's extremely debilitating for people if they're having thoughts that they might be. Then that leads to like avoidance of not being anywhere near children, not talking to anybody young, just out of that fear because they believe the thoughts that they're having. It usually starts with just what if I am, as in like very out of nowhere, just like imagine if I was kind of thing. And then they're like, why have I just thought that? That's so random. And then it escalates. It's not really based on anything that's happened. It might be based on an image or perhaps something that they've seen on the news. And then it grows. I'm going to link some videos about each theme down in the description below, but I'm sure you're sensing a common thread here around it's things that we're not allowed to think about, right? It's things that would shock someone else to say it out loud. So it's like a secret in our own minds. So there's a common thread nearly with all of them, maybe not so much like the health, but even still, we don't really want to turn to someone and say, you know, I think I'm dying. There's still shame with that. There's still sort of embarrassment with that, even though to us it feels really real. But in general, it's usually stuff that's not allowed. We're not allowed to think that. And even with health, death is not a subject that, again, is widely spoken about. It's still linked to a taboo subject where that isn't just out in the open. We don't just chat about dying and death, obviously. So it's still rooted in like a hidden topic. So I've given you lots of context about intrusive thoughts. Maybe you're somebody who's like, oh my God, that's me. Like I had that thought the other day, or my theme is definitely that theme. I haven't gone through every single theme, by the way. I just wanted to highlight some of the more common ones, or the ones that certainly are more like disturbing and shocking for people. If that's you, I'm now going to talk through the steps of breaking the cycle of intrusive thoughts. So number one is to stop engaging in a back and forth with your thoughts. So this is where you want to challenge your thoughts, obviously, but it's engaging with them, giving them more airtime. So again, let's use one that I've already used, which is you're walking down the street and you find someone attractive. Getting into a back and forth would be doing something like this. Oh, actually, no, I don't find that person attractive, actually. She's actually not really my type. Like, she's blonde and I don't usually go for blondes. My partner has dark hair. So that can't be true. You know, I really, really fancy my current partner. I definitely fancy my current partner. So I don't know why I just thought that. Like, I don't really understand why that's just happened. So you can see already that it's like you're really giving it airtime. You're really engaging with a thought rather than just being like, oh, more, I know it's really difficult, but more kind of shrugging it off, or more sort of like, oh, that was random. Not about just being like, oh yeah, that's normal, that's fine. But it's about not really engaging in the content of the thought, just being like, oh, that was a random thought that I just had. And then, you know, being able to carry on with your day. That's where we want to get to. So that's the first thing, is to try and stop getting into a back and forth argument with your thought, where you're trying to disprove it and argue against it and provide all the evidence of why it can't be true. So try and break that pattern. Number two is to practice self-soothing techniques. So obviously, as I've mentioned with all these themes, some of these thoughts are extremely disturbing. It's really shocking if you have a thought that is related to something that's illegal, something that's sexual, something that's violent. That is going to be really hard to be like, no biggie, I totally get that. And this is where you have to be really compassionate and self-soothing, taking a deep breath and being like, that was an intrusive thought, like really naming it as an intrusive thought, and doing something, whatever that is for you, to try and calm your nervous system down, because your nervous system is going to spike. And that's where the behaviours of I need to disprove it, I need to challenge this, come from. So what we want to do is bring it down and be a bit more like, actually, what can I do? I'm going to go for a walk because that was really horrible and now I feel really anxious. So I'm going to just go for a walk and try and do something for me, or, you know, pick up a book or watch your favourite comfort TV show or meditate or journal, like whatever. Everyone is so different with what is a self-soothing practice. It doesn't even have to be an action. I know when I suffered with anxiety and had a lot of intrusive thoughts, I would like literally hug myself and be like, it's okay. Like, it's okay that this has happened, and be really warm and comforting to myself just to like bring it down, because I couldn't talk to anyone about it. So I had to talk to myself. But instead of talking to myself in a really horrible way of like, what is wrong with you, you weirdo, you freak, it had to be in a really nice way, in a really warm way of like, it's okay. This is just a thought. This is because you're really struggling right now. It's not gonna last. Like, this anxiety will, you know, calm down eventually. What can we do to get you to that calmer place? So that's the second thing then, is self-soothing techniques. The third thing is to let go of compulsive behaviours. So this is the Googling. Am I in the right relationship? What does the pain in my chest mean? Asking your partner, friends for reassurance. Oh, can you just tell me, like, am I a bad person? Can you just let me know if I look different in any way, etc. Or telling your partner, if you've got relationship related thoughts, really going to your partner and asking them, them if they're okay all the time, or confessing, oh, I saw someone in the street today and I thought they were attractive, I just wanted to let you know, it didn't mean anything. That's compulsive. If you're somebody that worries about things being on and off, trying to reduce the checking, oh, I just need to check if the iron's off again. You've already checked. You might be desperate to check again. Try not to check. So any kind of like checking behaviours, anything that you know on some level is compulsive, where you're doing it again and again because you're trying to get relief, anything like that has to be reduced. Now, you don't have to go cold turkey. I say this to clients all the time because they look at me when I'm saying this and they're like, that is terrifying. This is what I've been doing. You know, and I do all these different compulsive behaviours. Set a timer. I'm going to Google for 10 minutes and then stop, rather than the hours that I usually do. I'm gonna call the doctor, but I'm not gonna do it today. I'm gonna give it a couple of days, 3 days. So we're just training ourselves to reduce these compulsive behaviors. I'm gonna tell my partner that one thing, but not this other thing. Rather than doing everything, make a list of anything compulsive you're doing that is feeding into the thoughts, and try and minimize them, reduce them, and of course, get rid of them. That includes avoidance. Are you staying in because you're scared you're gonna harm someone? Try and go outside, try and go for a walk, try and meet up with a friend. Don't isolate yourself. That's again an example of a compulsive behavior, because you're giving the thoughts meaning and then behaving accordingly. So anything like that needs to go. Number 4 is practicing exposures. This is probably the hardest one. I think it's all quite challenging, but I do think exposures are designed to be difficult. So an exposure for health would be watching something like Grey's Anatomy, where like they're going to be talking about loads of medical stuff, and you'll sit there and you know on some level you're going to get anxious and you're going to want to Google, and you don't. That's an exposure, because you're getting comfortable with the anxiety, not in a permanent way, but just to see through. With relationship type intrusive thoughts, an exposure could be being intimate with your partner when you really might not want to. And I don't mean like pressure yourself or pressure someone else into doing it. What I mean is, if you're someone that your compulsive behavior is, it can go both ways actually, I've seen it both ways, is to avoid having sex completely because you're so worried that it won't be good or you won't feel connected to your partner, then make that effort to be intimate. That's a really good exposure therapy. If you're the opposite, if you're somebody that is having loads of sex for reassurance, oh, that means I definitely find my partner attractive. I must do, because we're having sex every night. So I definitely find them attractive. Have one night where you don't have sex, where you just go to bed and you do nothing. You turn over and you go to sleep. That would be a really good exposure for you. So try and think of things that are challenging, that are going to break any cycles of behavior, that are going to challenge you around your compulsive behaviors as well. So harm OCD might be watching like violent films, or just meeting up with people that you're afraid to harm. You know, so if you've got harmful thoughts about your parents, go see your parents. Don't allow these thoughts to be like, you can't go in case you hurt them. Go visit your parents. So anything like that is an exposure. It's really difficult. This is where the self-soothing has to come in. You're going to be okay. This is going to be tough, but I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to be anxious, and it's not going to be a good day, probably. I'm not going to enjoy doing this exposure, but I'm going to do it because I'm teaching these thoughts that they do not have all the power. So this is where you have to be really reassuring and calm and kind and compassionate to yourself, and treat yourself afterwards for it as well. So like you do an exposure and then you kind of reward yourself for doing it. So that kind of thing. Number 5 then is practicing acceptance. So this again is really challenging. And what I mean by that is accepting that the thought might be true. You might be sat there like, what is she talking about? If I accept that this is true or might be true, then that means I'm evil. That means there's something wrong with me. That means I have to end my relationship. That means I'm dying, etc. That's not what I mean. What I mean is they have all the power because you're desperate for them not to be true. But by accepting that there's a possibility that it might be, it weakens the thought. What do I mean? So you have a thought, you're definitely going to die. You definitely have cancer. If you start to actually think to yourself, you know what? Lots of people get cancer, and they are able to still be a mum, to be a partner, to go to work, to recover, to be quite happy as they receive their treatment. And it's quite a common thing, unfortunately. Accepting doesn't mean liking, by the way. And that's really important as I talk about this cancer example. You don't have to like the idea of getting cancer. None of us do. None of us want that. Accepting is different. Accepting is like, you know what, in my life, especially as I get older, I might get sick. I might have a disease. And then that intrusive thought that's like, you're definitely gonna die, you're definitely got a disease, isn't gonna be as strong then, because you're already kind of accepting the fact that that might happen in your life. You hope it doesn't, but it might. Same with being in the wrong relationship. You might be. There might be someone out there who's technically better suited, that you technically find more attractive, that is more compatible, maybe. And again, by accepting that, like, oh, actually, you know what? There might be people out there that are a bit better suited for me. I'm sticking with my current partner because for the most part, I am really happy. We've been together for a long time. Apart from this anxiety, we are good. We're not perfect, but we are good. But yes, there might be people out there that are better, technically. Then again, it doesn't have as much power. It's not trying to be like, that means that you're in the wrong relationship, you need to leave now. Because you're kind of looking at the thought like, so, do you see what I mean? It's about really accepting that you feel anxious is one thing, because a lot of us engage in compulsive behaviours because we don't want to feel anxious, we're trying to get rid of it. So accepting the anxiety, learning to live with it a little bit, and accepting that the thoughts might be true on some level. I appreciate that these are harder with harm and with like more shocking ones, but there's still ways that you can practice acceptance with that. You can talk about how having the thought might be real, so there might be part of you that might want to hurt somebody, but you're not doing anything. You've never hurt someone and you never will hurt someone. So you've not done anything, and just kind of thinking about how actions are separate from thoughts, but the thoughts might be real, as in there might be part of you that kind of wants to do that. Perhaps there's part of you that's like angry with people or angry at yourself. You're being flexible with yourself without being like, you're an evil human being that's definitely going to do this. You're being a bit more fluid with it, of like, you know what, maybe there is part of me that has that side of me that just really wants to shove someone because I'm really angry with stuff that's happened to me. Am I going to do it? No, but there's part of me that wants to. And again, then the thought kind of dissipates because it's like, oh, I can't really get you with that. I hope that makes sense around that one. Number 6 then is therapy and medication. So all of those steps that I said before, that's really hard to do on your own. And having a therapist that's experienced in anxiety and OCD and intrusive thoughts can help you through it. With my clients all the time, they come in and go, oh, I did this exposure and it went really well, or the opposite of like, I tried, but I just couldn't do it. And I think the themes are moving. I think, I was really worried about harming this person. Now I'm worried about harming that person. And it's someone that they can talk it through without any judgment. Again, particularly as we're talking about topics with a lot of stigma, a lot of shock value, perhaps your friends and family won't understand. Like, what do you mean you're having thoughts about harming people? What do you mean you're having these sexual thoughts? So to talk to a therapist where you're not going to be judged, when I'm not going to panic, the person's not going to panic, the person's not going to feel like horrified by what you're sharing. That is such a safe space to like talk through it all. And actually certain medications as well, if you talk to your GP, can help reduce thoughts, can help, again, maybe not get rid of them completely, but certainly reduce the impact of them, reduce the kind of anxiety symptoms, and reduce how much they latch on. So definitely speak to your GP for those options. And I'm going to obviously link below, like if you're in the UK, where you can find a therapist. And then the final thing that I want to speak about then is just your overall well-being. Things like journaling is really good because you're externalizing the thought. Sometimes there's power in like reading them back. When you're writing down, I think I'm going to die because I've got this disease, because I have a headache, you can read it back. And again, you're not judging yourself, but you're like, oh, I actually don't. Now that I'm looking at this, I think I'm just really anxious. I don't actually think I'm dying. So there's something about externalizing and getting it out of your head that can be really good. Obviously, meditation is great because meditation is you're observing your thoughts and you're not doing anything with them. That's amazing for intrusive thoughts because that's what we want. We want to not engage with them. So by practicing meditation, you're again training that muscle to be like, I'm just observing that thought has come in and now it's coming out and I'm having different thoughts and it's all okay. It's all to be accepted, rather than doing anything with the thoughts. That's what we don't want. So meditation can be great. Obviously just focusing on your overall health, sleep, eating well, exercise, not in a perfectionist way, just trying to, obviously, as I said, intrusive thoughts can take over your whole life and can leave people in a real bad state, physically and mentally. So just check in with any habits that you might have unintentionally formed with the compulsive behaviours. Check in around your health, not in a compulsive way if you've got health anxiety, but just in your general well-being way. And finally, I like using the pizza analogy with this, where like there's other areas of your life to focus on. So intrusive thoughts tend to latch on to one area of your life and everything else gets neglected. And I'd really encourage you to think of all the different slices of pizza of your life that needs a bit more attention, or that could be a really good distraction for you during this tough time. If you're someone who's suffering with relationship-based intrusive thoughts, your relationship is one part of your life. Maybe it's time to think about friends, work, family, hobbies, interests, stuff that you like doing just on your own, rather than being hyper focused. What if I'm in the wrong relationship? I need to figure out if I'm attracted to her or him. I need to figure out if it's right or wrong. I need to look at photos of my partner to see if I'm definitely in love. I need to check my feelings all the time. I need to constantly talk with my partner to see if we're on the same page. Well, then nothing else in your life matters currently, just your relationship. And I'd really encourage you to think of the pizza and to think of like other slices that can be focused on. So that's everything that I wanted to talk about today in terms of intrusive thoughts. I really hope that you found this video helpful in some way. At the very least, I hope it made you feel less alone. I hope it's giving you a good place to start in terms of how to challenge it, what to look out for in yourself, and hopefully I've normalized your experience as well. If you did find this video helpful, again, please share it with other people. Please give me a like and please subscribe to my channel. Please follow me on Instagram because again, I post short form content around this subject on there, as well as other topics. And yeah, thank you so much if you got to this point. Hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one. Bye.